Hello, Wear Many Hats listeners. I'm Mark Robinson, your host, and we're back for another exciting episode of Wear Many Hats. Really interesting one, but slightly different for you today. Today, we're going to talk about everything museums, everything history, and everything projects. We're joined today by Alec Shaw, who is the Director of New Museum Projects and Estates at the Museum of London. Hello, Alec. How are you doing?
Hi there. I'm all good.
Having a good day?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've got far more hair than I expected, given the job you do.
Very pleased to hear that.
To be fair, I would have thought the stress might affect you a little bit, given what you're doing at the minute.
I'm hanging on to it, yeah.
You're hanging on to it. Good stuff. Okay, Alec, listen, thanks for joining us. Absolute pleasure to have you here. I always like to start with a nice, easy question, so we'll just fire into it. So tell us a little bit about your career and why you ended up doing what you're doing now.
Sure. I'll try not to go on too long. But yeah, I started, I graduated with a computing degree.
Yep.
So quite different to where I've ended up. But it's just what seemed right at the time.
Yeah.
And then I moved into sort of the beginning of the internet. I was doing a number of web projects, educational projects. And, you know, I did some really interesting stuff, a 2-year project with the Science Museum to take one of their galleries and move it online and do it in a really interesting, interactive way. But I quickly realised it wasn't quite for me.
But it gave you exposure into that world of museums.
Yeah. And the Science Museum project was fantastic. And I loved it, but I felt something slightly different. And I got slightly lucky. A role at the British Museum.
Fabulous institution.
Absolutely. Just incredible. And, you know, to be honest, I went for it because it was the British Museum as much as anything. But what it turned out, and I didn't know this when I applied, was it would bridge sort of my computing degree, project management, which I'd really got into over the sort of previous couple of years before that.
Yeah.
And that was because it was a mummy exhibition that took this sort of supercomputer. It was quite a large computer at the time. This is about 2003. They CAT scanned a mummy, and it was about building a 3D cinema that visitors could travel through. So a very different exhibition to what the British Museum had previously done, but trying to create this sort of blockbuster exhibition that could attract a whole new audience. Anyway, for me, it was bringing a number of sort of my skills together, but taking me into a completely different place. And you know, I had basically 9 months to deliver that. Yeah. It was incredibly full on, but we delivered it. It was incredibly successful. It went on to have 600,000 visitors. It was extended by 6 months.
Wow.
And it just exposed me to this amazing world of museums, its collections, the audience, the visitors.
Pretty cool as well to be working with a mummy, isn't it? Yeah. To be fair, I mean, I love the old Egyptian history. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll never forget the sort of first time I was taken into what they call the mummy store. Yeah. About 100 mummies in there. Wow. And John Taylor, who's the curator, took me around, told me all about them. And I was just like, this is the most incredible place you could possibly want to work.
Can I ask you a question on that? It's going to be a random one. What did that smell like, out of interest?
It was a bit classic sort of museum store smell.
So it wasn't like a putrid smell or anything, because obviously
no, not at all.
So it's like a foisty closet or something.
No, it was. I can't quite remember the smell. No, it was, but it was sort of.
In my imagination, I'm like hundreds of mummies, and I'm thinking that can't smell good.
No, it was fine. It was fine. I do not remember a bad smell.
Bit of a bad segue.
But there were lots of smells across the museum, all sorts. But you know, these stores were incredible. So, you know, I went on to do an exhibition around Persia, big blockbuster. Yeah. It was a time where Neil McGregor, the director, had just been appointed, and he gave a real vision and purpose to the museum that sort of brought it back alive. These new exhibitions, we did an exhibition on Michelangelo. Right. That led into the first Emperor exhibition, Terracotta Warriors. And you know, some really big blockbuster exhibitions. And, you know, it was a time where museums realised we needed to bring in project management skills to deliver these big projects. And
because it's complex, isn't it? A lot of moving parts associated with moving what is priceless objects, really, from one place to another, and then building it in a secure, safe setting for people to come and view.
Yeah, it's all sorts of different skill sets, expertises, curatorial, operational, design, and then you've got you've got the construction side of things, so all coming together. Then you've got to open it. You've got to, for the Mummy exhibition, we had to have time tickets. So it's bringing all that operational thinking in, and it's bringing lots of people together. So that project management skill is about bringing all those stakeholders, all those different departments together, coordinating them really well, and delivering to program. And I just found it amazing. It was just such, I just loved it. Absolutely brilliant. And did that for about 3.5 years. That went really quickly. And I got lucky to be offered a role working on international projects, which was largely about setting up a new department which would do new international projects that might generate new income streams for the museums, but also meet its purpose to basically make sure the collection was out there internationally, certain meeting soft power for the for the museum, and really pushing into areas such as China, the Middle East. We did a lot of exhibitions in the US, and so for me, it was about putting, I suppose, contracts in place with other museums to take loan exhibitions off us. We would charge them for those, and
really,
in certain instances we would. And so that was just something completely different. It pulled on my exhibition skills, but then gave me new skills around putting big contracts together, diplomacy skills, working internationally, that sort of thing. And it was a fantastic role again for about 18 months. And actually it was cut short because another opportunity turned up at the British Museum. And that's what it was all about. It was like one after the other. I felt very fortunate at the time to work on the new capital project as a sort of client lead. A site in the northwest corner of the Bloomsbury estate was available. The British Library had occupied it before it had moved out to St Pancras, and this site was been available, and it was ripe for basically a new building to meet some facilities the museum really needed, which was exhibitions, conservation, science labs, and a series of collection stores that could allow it to consolidate its estate and its collections in a much better way, sort of much better conditions and much better facilities. And that was so. It was an 18,000 square meter building, and it brought me into the world of capital projects, basically. But also bringing in my sort of knowledge and experience of museums at the same time. And so that was a 4-year period doing that. Working with fantastic architect Roger Sturck-Harbour and Partners, so world-class architect. Really complex building, bringing lots of different parts together, lots of logistical thinking around collections, conservation labs. Really high specification spaces, really difficult spaces to design.
So how specifically sort of museums, how do they fund those initiatives? Is it a mixture of self-funding, i.e., selling tickets, mixed with government, mixed with grants, which I imagine is quite complex in terms of dealing with that and managing it and pulling resource from here and there? That must be quite complex.
It's a huge part of a project at a museum is how's it going to be funded? And it usually is a mixed model of all the things you've mentioned. At the time, the British Museum held some reserves from a building that it had bought but decided not to go ahead with for its collection stores. So there's some reserves there. Lottery funding at the time was still very available, less available now. Perhaps there might be some government funding, but that's hard fought. And then, of course, private funding, so trusts and
donations and things like that.
And so you're bringing all that together, but that brings a real set of activities in itself, and making sure that funders are aligned with with what we're trying to do. Certain funders want to fund a science lab, so you've got to make sure that all those funders are kept up to date with the project.
So they want to fund what they're interested in generally.
Often, absolutely.
And are they quite demanding then? I don't know. Are they involved on a?
Most are just really want to. It's a great place to put your money if you can into a museum. They want to be kept involved, most of them, and they want to see as the construction happens. They want to see that, but. Actually, most of them are very understanding that they don't get involved in the specification of the building or how we run it. We're the museum, we know how to do it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But there is, of course, a certain amount of stakeholder management there, yeah.
Yeah. I imagine that's incredibly interesting.
It is, actually. You're meeting really interesting people.
Yeah.
And that in itself is great.
Yeah, that's cool. So what's the culture like in that kind of environment then? Because I imagine it's slightly different to any other environment.
You mean in the museum?
Yeah, just in like that setting, that museum setting. Yeah, I imagine the culture is quite interesting.
It is. And I think you're bringing lots of different types of people together, and as I said, from curatorial to operations, security, learning.
Yeah.
That's a completely different skill set and lots of different personalities.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they are joined up by they all want to work for a really interesting organisation that has this visitor-facing part of it.
Yeah.
And they want to be near the collections, and they're all interested in that. They're interested in history, like yourself, and so they're sort of binded by that, I think. But of course, there are challenges bringing those people together. They've all got different objectives, and I suppose that was often my role, was to try and align everybody under the sort of the brief of the project or the vision of the project.
And then obviously now you're at the Museum of London, and you're dealing with that transition from the old site over to the new sites in Smithfields, which I imagine is once again complex and a multi-year project as well, I believe.
Yeah. And I should just mention that, so in between the British Museum and joining the Museum of London, I was head of projects at the V&A.
Right,
so,
apologies.
No, not at all. That was just a sort of key part of my career, though, because it took me from that capital project at the British Museum, and it, at the V&A, they have a projects department. I was head of projects, heading up that department.
Right.
And the way you look at projects at the V&A is that it's business as usual. You're always going to be doing a project. One part of the museum is always going to need updating at some point.
Yeah.
A gallery after sort of 15, 25 years is going to be tired, so it needs updating. So the ethos there was really, you have a permanent projects department that is developing that building. And over a sort of 20-year period, they ran this future plan program, which I oversaw sort of phase 2 of that.
Right. And
about 85% of the building was regenerated and updated during that period. So a huge sort of program of redevelopment work. And so that exposed me. I mean, I largely joined because of a project called the Exhibition Road Quarter, which was about creating a new entrance and reorientating the museum to Exhibition Road. Right. Creating a new gallery underground, a new courtyard, and really, meeting a number of objectives that the museum really, really needed to do. But also I did a number of galleries. The team that I ran delivered a whole range of different things, a members room. So again, a series of great projects, lots of new challenges, and sort of set me up really well for the latest sort of challenge. Yeah. So in 2017, I joined Museum of London. Yeah. Probably definitely the most ambitious project I've taken on in terms of taking a whole museum and trying to land it in one go.
Yeah, it is great. When you actually think about that, because it was a big old site. Yeah. I mean, to pick it up effectively, move it somewhere else. Yeah.
And we're trying not to just pick it up and put it somewhere else. We're trying to transform it in itself. Yeah. So obviously, since the museum, it was at London Wall in 1976. It moved there. Obviously, it was updated a series of times since then. Yeah. But museums have moved on hugely. Yes. Why do people go to museums? It's not just about going to see the objects or learn about London's past. It's about a place to go and visit and experience, a place to meet people.
Family day out. Yeah. That's why I take my kids. I really enjoy it.
And that's why visitor numbers have shot up over the last 20 years, is because it's not, museums have improved themselves. They've created much better spaces for people to see. Yeah. So we need to think about all of that and create a museum that's going to be fit for purpose for the next sort of 20, 30 years.
Yeah, of course.
So in not only are we moving the museum, we're transforming it in the same time. So so the project is taking these historic market buildings. One's building in the late 19th century and another building in the 1960s. So these two buildings, very different. The 1960 building replaced a Victorian building that was burnt down in the 50s, rebuilt in the 60s, has this incredible single span roof. So you've got this perfect mix of two buildings from two different periods of London's history. And so the perfect mix, which will join together in this sort of entrance space, which is this street space that sits between the two buildings. It will be a covered space, but you'll enter between the two buildings. You can choose to go right or left. Yeah. And two very different buildings that sort of meet what we needed in the best possible way because they're so different. What we've been able to do is make sure a lot more of it's front of house. Yeah. So I think the old building had, through inefficiencies, had too much back of house. Right. It was quite a difficult shape. Yeah. It was compromised in many different ways. And I think we've just really pushed it to make sure as much public-facing, space is there as much as possible. So we'll be able to double the public space.
Right. Okay.
At least, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. That's good news. You'll get more people in, which is always good.
Absolutely. We're trying to get at least 2 million visitors in. The previous building had 700,000.
Wow. In a year? What, in a year?
Yeah.
Is that how you would adjudicate it?
Yeah.
Per annum?
That's right.
That's a lot of bodies, isn't it?
It is. And so hopefully, that'll be the most visited city museum in the world. And that's our aim, is to create the best city museum in the world.
So just for our listeners that don't know anything about the Museum of London, what does the Museum of London tend to focus on?
So it's really since, London before London, it starts, and then the creation of sort of London through Roman times, but, right up to the present day through the Second World War. Yeah. And we really want the new museum to obviously look back, understand London's history, understand, I suppose, London in living memory, everyone's living memory since the Second World War, you could say. Yeah. But obviously we want to look forward. Think about future London. We want to look at issues that are going on right now. So we want to be much more reactive than we have in the past. Right. Okay. But you can come and be able to see the full range of collections from all the different sort of stages of London's history.
So the Great Fire of London, the Black Plague.
All of the classics will be there, yeah.
2,000 years ago when it was just a bridge over the river, because that was London, wasn't it, for a period of time?
Absolutely, yeah.
It was just literally a wooden bridge with houses built on it, and there was nothing on either side, was it? That was like the capital.
Yeah, so everything.
It's crazy.
But right up to present day. And then, looking forward, recently we had the Fatberg, which is,
I heard about that. I did hear about it.
And that was incredibly popular. It's, looking at London sewers and seeing some of the things that aren't particularly nice. Yeah. That are extracted out of it, but putting it on display as an object. But in itself, you can talk about all sorts of issues that are going on in London.
Yeah, you can do, yeah. To be fair, they've recently opened up a new sewer pipe, haven't they? You might know about this, I don't know. I saw it in the paper, it was about 6 months ago. And I was quite astounded that they opened it by having a very well-known, not that I know who it is because I can't name him, violin or cellist player playing in the pipe. And it's this new pipe that goes across the whole of London, and it's going to help the sewerage systems immensely. Yes. I just thought, what's a random thing to do, to have guy...
I didn't know about that, but yeah, I do know about the super sewer, yeah.
Yeah, the super sewer, yeah. But I just thought, what a way to open it. Whoever thought of that was probably, do you know what, that's probably quite good, what's the word? Not optics, that's sight, isn't it? Acoustics, yeah.
Absolutely, acoustics, well, it caught your imagination.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously, obviously facilities management podcast as opposed to a projects podcast. Yeah. And the reason that you're joining us today is because obviously what the museum has done something slightly different, and everything from a facilities perspective lines into yourself. So when you're developing this new site, obviously, you're not just thinking about the capital projects, you're also thinking about what do I need to put in place to aid in the management of this building when it goes live, and, what do we need to think about with respect to public coming in and so on and so forth. So what challenges have you seen in respect to that with regards to these two new properties? Is there anything that stands out as that was quite complex and we've had to think about this slightly differently?
I mean, all sorts of things. I mean, I think... one of the reasons I oversee the estate as well as the project is to really join up that thinking about, obviously it's one of those traps that a lot of projects have fallen into is to think about how we design and construct it, but forget about how we operate it.
Yes.
And so we just put a huge amount of effort into it. And I know, obviously, lots of people think about that, but the sooner we can bring in the facilities and estate teams into that thinking, we've done that literally from day one, into how we're going to construct that how we're going to construct the buildings, how we're going to maintain them, the better it will land. And we thought about soft landings right from the beginning. We thought about sustainability and environmental energy issues. We thought about smart buildings right from the beginning. Right. So we're really trying to create the smartest, hopefully, museum in the world as well. In terms of data collection, making sure that data is usable across all systems. And we're pushing that through our specifications. Every contractor that works on the project has to adhere to our data specification.
Of course.
That sort of thing. So security systems will talk to building management systems, that will talk to environmental systems, and that will talk to, I don't know, the ticketing system. So but sorry, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure if that completely answers your question, but that's the idea. That's the idea of joining it all up, and that's got to work right through. Right through to the operations, and to the maintenance in the future. So, and our estate and facilities teams are in there at the moment. Working with the contractors, making sure they're thinking about certain things. We have a technical lead who sits in the project team, who was a previous head of estate. So his role is really to bring that technical expertise onto the client team, to make sure it's not just sitting on the consultant side. So we get all these questions from consultants who are not going to have to worry about operating the building in the future. We need somebody on the client side who's dedicated to answering the questions, giving the right direction, but maybe isn't worrying about the current estate. That's too much, but is joining it up with the current estate. So we put that in, 3 or 4 years ago. And they've been on the project ever since.
Because the current estate, like the old property, that closed obviously in 2022.
At the end of 2022, we decided to close it so we could completely focus on the new building. We have 3 buildings in the existing estate. So the London Wall building that we've just closed, as you said, December 2022. We've got the Docklands Museum, which we oversee as well, which sits in Canary Wharf and tells the history of the docks. And
which I'm sure is a very interesting history. Actually, a lot of stuff.
Brilliant museum, and we're really pushing that museum because it's our only open museum at the moment.
Will that remain open?
Absolutely.
It will. So even when the new site's open, that will remain open.
And it will come under so we're going to sort of rebrand ourselves as the London Museum. And that will be called the London Museum Docklands. And that's doing fantastically well. It has a really good audience, a local audience in London as much as, a wider audience. And we want to make that better and better and really push that as well. We also have a collection store in East London as well. So you've got those 3 buildings working together. And so London Wall, once we move the whole museum into the Smithfield buildings, that will be handed back to the City of London.
So are you in the process of mothballing that site now whilst also bringing the other one online?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So that is incredibly complex. Wow. And there are 450,000 objects sitting in that museum alone. We have the East London store as well. So all those objects. So we had to close the museum literally to allow the space to pack those objects. And when you pack them, it's not just about packing them. You've got to obviously make sure they're processed through a system.
Tagged.
You know exactly where they are. We're making sure we are improving that location tracking. We're photographing in many cases because we want collections to be online. Be accessibly digitally, so we can improve that side of things. So there's a whole collection sort of data upgrade going on at the same time, as well as packing them, getting them ready. And obviously there are only a certain proportion. I mean, this is obviously lots of people know this, but only a certain proportion go on display. So you've got to prioritise those objects
it's like an iceberg, isn't it? 20% is out for people to see, but 80% is somewhere else.
But, we're often working on all of those 80% in terms of research or they're going on loan, that sort of thing.
What's the most interesting piece that you like in the museum?
Oh, that's a huge question. So I think there's all sorts of. I think the Olympic torch is one incredible one.
Oh, really? Oh, is that there? Is that where it is?
Yeah, and that's an incredible. And there was a dedicated gallery just for that. And we hope to get that back on display. We're currently, just on my mind is there's the Royal Telephone Exchange that's at in Buckingham Palace at one point. That's incredible. So we're hoping that's going to be on display in the new museum.
Right.
There's obviously
and that was the days when they took the pins out and then put them in.
And you can see all their names and you can see every room where they did that. And it's just so incredible. Cool. And you obviously have, they connected them to number 10 and that sort of thing. So that's amazing. And then you've got lots of collections from the Great Fire of London, suffragettes, Roman London, but then you've got Tom Daly's swimming costume for the 2012 Olympics as well. You've got the full range. You've got Fatberg. Incredible. Yeah, really great collection.
Okay, so going back to the new facility, obviously you mentioned sustainability earlier on. I imagine that's been at the forefront of your thinking when developing the project and moving it forward. Have there been any interesting initiatives that are being put in place that you'd like to talk about and tell us about?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that we did think of it right from the beginning. Obviously sustainability was becoming increasingly important. And so we just set ourselves a really sort of tough objectives early on around sustainability, and we brought the whole design and museum team into that, and working with Arup in particular, we thought about how can we reduce the energy efficiency? How can we increase the energy efficiency of the building?
Yeah.
Where can we locate certain facilities that will allow that to happen? So, I mean, just simple examples is if the collection store is in the basement, and got these incredible basement spaces in the new buildings, which were like cold stores in the past for the market. It makes sense to locate the collection store there. Use the thermal mass of the building. Yeah. You're not putting them in natural sunlight, where you're having to work really hard to keep those environmental conditions right for those stores. Yeah. But also they're incredible spaces for visitors to enjoy. So we just thought really carefully about where certain things were located, both from a visitor point of view, a visitor experience point of view, but also from an environmental point of view. Yeah. And we managed to marry up those two things, working really hard, iteration after iteration, option after option. And then in the tougher spaces, so the above ground spaces where, these buildings have a lot of natural light, there's a lot of glazing, and we were really keen to bring as much natural light into the museum as possible. Yeah. Often museums can be quite dark spaces, and that isn't a space you want to stay too long. Can we not work too hard in terms of trying to control those environmental conditions? And I think in the past, museums, tended to do that. That obviously means you have to work, incredibly hard from an energy point of view to keep those spaces controlled. So we've tried to use a lot more passive environmental control using natural ventilation.
Because they're quite naturally big spaces, aren't they? Because of the nature of what you're doing. So
but it means that we have to think about what we can show there. So we won't be able to show all collections there, or we'll have to rotate them more. Yeah. Or we'll have to come up with localized ways of protecting them from sunlight, to look after the collections. Yeah. So we've, compromised in certain places, but they can be the spaces where, obviously you can have cafes and you can have spaces where you can hold events, you can do programming, you can certainly still do certain types of displays. So we just thought, first of all, so that will allow us to reduce our energy down as much as possible. Yeah. Use passive environmental control as much as possible. Yeah. And then once we've done that, we thought we're plugging into the local heating and cooling network, which is CityGen, which is literally just across the road. So the idea that, that's something that, we talked a lot with the Greater London Authority about. They were very keen, in the City of London as well. We plugged into that local network. Over time, that will decarbonise and, we'll be able to hit our net zero targets through that. And there's sort of initiatives to do that. We've got photovoltaics on the roof. We've got green roofs. We've got lots of water conservation.
So you've got garden roofs. Is that the
sort of green roofs? Yeah. So
when you say so, like grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And lots of I suppose rainwater harvesting. Lots of great initiatives. And so We were aiming for excellent BREEAM. We think we can hit outstanding BREEAM.
Really?
Which is great.
Right. Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, and then obviously I've already mentioned, how we want to be a really smart building and make sure that we're using data in the right way, and we can take that right through into the operations. And there's things that we can do with that data that we probably don't even know yet. And obviously, with artificial intelligence, there's all sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually. Have you leveraged artificial intelligence at all during the project, or?
Not yet, I don't think. I think we're all, like everybody else, starting to think about that in a big way and making sure, as I say, we get our data in a format that it can be used very easily.
Yeah.
And then, we will start to think about how we're doing a number of sort of trials in the Docklands Museum at the moment with data, but it's more about, how can we work that data? How can we monitor that data? How can we react to that data? And then obviously artificial intelligence can bring that automated function to it as well.
Yeah, it comes in. So in terms of the systems that you've put in place across, facilities, BMA, or everything, you've ensured that they can all talk and communicate with each other, and then future-proofing them for new technology as it comes in.
And that's it. And that it's, on an open source basis. So we're not tied to any particular system.
So you can bolt onto it in future as new technology becomes available.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's about future-proofing it. So, and obviously we've got to go through a process of deciding on exactly what systems we all have, but they'll all have to adhere to the data specification that we've set. Okay,
that's really interesting. So obviously the previous museum, the previous site averaged around 700,000 visitors a year. You've had an uptick to potentially 2 million in the new site. How do you go about thinking we need X, we need Y, and we need Z when your experience is based around 700,000? How do you quantify that? Like, how do you come up with a plan?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think obviously we're looking at making sure we've got enough public space to accommodate those visitors. We're creating, amazing buildings with the right amount of architecture.
Yeah.
That will attract those amount of visitors. And it's so important that I suppose museums create spaces that have a changing program.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the previous museum suffered from, is that, we, had one offer, but it didn't change very much. And
there wasn't a lot of flexibility. You couldn't manipulate it to make it different.
And you need exhibitions, you need a changing program. Visitors want to see something new.
Yeah.
But also they want to come back to a space that they really like coming back to. That's how you get repeat visitors. So that's sort of, I suppose, what we had to make sure we put in place. There's all sorts of things around that we did. But then we've got to think, as you say, how are you going to accommodate those visitors? We did lots of visitor modelling, visitor flow modelling.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to do that from a sort of fire evacuation point of view anyway.
Yeah. Did you do like the crowd dynamics?
Yeah, we've done that. Yeah.
I was at an event once many moons ago for a previous company that I worked for. And we had a gentleman come in and speak to us about the dynamics of a crowd. It was the most interesting thing I've ever seen, because when we're in a crowd, human beings, we don't think individually. We think as a surge. It's absolutely crazy. But he was showing us images and showing us pictures and videos of different, elements where, there was crushes, people had died, things like that, because the right measures weren't in place from the person who was managing the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the decisions that you make with respect to that are crucial.
Yeah. So I think, we did. We worked with companies that have done that sort of thing. And I think that is very useful, and it allows you to sort of test certain things that you just couldn't test without that sort of modelling. And I've done that a number of times, and it is very useful. And obviously there's lots of formulas and models that can test, pavement usage.
Yeah.
Which entrances are they going to come into? We're trying to create a very permeable museum, I should say that. Market buildings are always, they've always had lots of entrances, and these market buildings really do. And it would have been very easy just to say, look, here's the main entrance, and we'll just stick with the main entrance. Everyone will know where they come in and leave. But actually, we felt we should embrace a market building, and we might have some side entrances that people will get to know over time.
Yeah.
But obviously that does make modelling those visitor flows a bit harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing that I've learned, working on a number of projects, is you can't plan everything.
No.
We've got to create spaces that can adapt, and we should leave certain spaces that can adapt. So we shouldn't try and prescribe everything because we just won't get all the operations right. But obviously you've got to have an entrance that's big enough. Our entrance will, as I said, it's this street space that will be enclosed, but we still want it to feel like a street. But it's about 1,000 square meters, so it's this really big space that people can come
that's
in.
Between the two buildings.
That's right.
Are you going to have some kind of historical element associated with that, or?
We haven't fully. There's some design work to be done and some development
You could have
work.
a Jack the Ripper thing down there or something like that.
Absolutely, all sorts of ideas will come, and I think you can enter from both sides. And we're trying to. And one of the things we're thinking from is, where is everyone going to come from? We can't. We know that Farringdon's completely changing. Crossrail just landed there a year or two ago.
Yeah,
that completely transforms how you can get to this central part of London.
Yeah.
We say it's 2 stops from Paris basically now.
Yeah.
The museum.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's quite a neglected part of London that lots of visitors bypass. But the transport links are now there.
Yeah.
And so we're really going to be the catalyst to transforming this area. Both, but we want to keep the character of the area as well. Smithfield is one of those amazing places that, has got so much character everywhere you go. And we want it to maintain that character. And actually, one of the things I should mention that we're doing is surrounding the outside of one of the market buildings is what we call a series of houses. So it's a series of retail units. And actually, we're looking to not be the only occupier of the building. So we will have certain units on the outside of the building that can be occupied by partners. So that could be anything from an educational partner to an enterprise of some sort. We want no chains, but we want partners that can, I suppose, add to the whole and create a much better offer for visitors to come back to.
You could make it part of the attraction, couldn't you? You could have a 15th century bakers or and somebody that cooked in the traditional way that they did, or a 19th century horse chestnut person, something like that. And that's it. Build into the Roman, whatever the Romans ate 2,000 years ago.
Our one thing is it has to be about London and offer something back to London and Londoners and people who are visiting the museum. So
sweetie rats on a stick, black.
Stop.
Black plague rats.
I can see your theme here.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay. So obviously, you talked about the social aspect there, which is obviously quite important. And I'm guessing that's been quite intrinsic in your thinking in terms of, how can we develop the area? How can we attract new visitors to the area and look to, because if you attract new visitors, you tend to attract new businesses, new things, new bits and pieces. Was there any part of it where you were thinking we're going to have X impact on the local economy, on the social element, Absolutely. The youth of the area, things like that?
Absolutely. And you've got communities all around there. You've got Islington just to the north, Camden just to the west, and obviously we're in the middle of the city. So absolutely. And we think it's going to have incredible economic benefit as well.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure we're engaging with those local communities, and we've got we've got a whole team that are working on engagement, and we want to, through the process of developing the museum, engage with 100,000 Londoners.
Right.
And we think we're up to around about in the 60,000 so far. So
that's not bad going though, Alec. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done, we want them to contribute. We want them to tell us what they expect to see in the museum, what they'd like to see, what sort of programming they'd like to see. So we're doing that all the time.
Yeah.
But we've got everything from PhD students, doing research, into areas that might appear in the museum, and all sorts of different types of engagement. But that's not just going to happen whilst we're developing. Obviously, it's going to carry on.
Yeah.
But also through our construction, we make sure that anyone who's bidding on the project through our procurement is offering back to London. And obviously, the construction is a great opportunity to do lots of engagement, whether it be through schools, but also bring on apprenticeships and that sort of thing.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant. So when is the new site due to be opened?
So it's now in 2 phases.
Yeah.
So stage 1 will be opening the general market, which is the Victorian building.
Yeah.
The main entrance, which is in West Poultry Avenue. So that is due to open in 2026.
Right.
But I mean, you can already see if you're passing the building, the building is coming back into use. We call it the last ruin in London.
Yeah.
And it looks fantastic already. By 2025, it's going to look even better.
Right.
And it's due to open to the public in 2026. And then the Poultry Market building, which is the second building, the 1960s building, will open in early 2028.
Right.
We've only just taken occupation of that building.
Yep.
It's been working as a market up until literally last summer. So we took occupation. We've started working on it straight away.
Right.
And we think we can get it ready for around 2028.
Bloody hell. Exciting times then.
Lots to do. But actually, I think those 2 phases will be fantastic. Have the sort of 2 bangs.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Really interesting. I'll have to come and have a look. I'd love to come and see it. Okay, so moving away from work, tell us a little bit about you, Alec. What do you like to do outside of work? What gives you the most enjoyment?
Yeah, I think, we talked earlier before the podcast started about kids.
Yeah.
I've got an 8-year-old, an 11-year-old, and 2 boys, and they love their sports as I do. So I'm afraid most weekends are spent playing football or taking them to football, taking them to cricket.
Yeah.
Doing winter nets at the moment, and then hockey as well. So it's very busy, and now both boys are doing it.
Are you a competitive dad? Do you
I try not to be anymore.
Yeah. Are you one of them
I am
wheeling
literally
on the sidelines?
the taxi driver, but I do. I have started cricket coaching, so I head up the coaching for it was the under 11s, but just about going to the under 13s this year.
Right, okay. So is cricket your sport then? Is that your go-to?
I do love cricket, but I love football too, I'm afraid.
Who do you follow?
Southampton.
Southampton, really?
Yeah.
You're the first Saint we've had on the show, I think.
Yeah, there aren't many.
To be fair. We're
having a good season. Last season was terrible. But
yeah, without a doubt. Okay, Alec, well, that's actually the end of the podcast.
Thank you.
How did you find it?
It's great.
You enjoy it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Really good.
Listen, I'd like to thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed listening to you. It's great to hear about all of the sustainability initiatives that you're doing at the Museum of London, the changes, how you're going to give back to the community, and how you expect to kind of transform an area really by investing in it. So, listen, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And that's great.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's the end of another podcast. A very interesting one. So if you get an opportunity in 2026 to pop down to Smithfield's Markets and see the new Museum of London, make sure you're there for the grand opening. Looks like it's going to be a goodie. Thanks a lot. See you later.